When Rachel Long was found dead inside her home in London, Ohio, her husband Kyle did not tell police he had no idea what happened. He told them a very specific story, and that matters because once someone gives police a story that specific, the evidence either supports it or it starts tearing it apart. According to current reporting, the case began on October 23rd, 2025, when Kyle Long called 911 and reported what he described as a suicide. 4 months later, on March 4th, 2026, he was arrested and charged with Rachel's murder. Rachel Long was 32 years old, a mother of two, and the owner of Pawfect Pups Grooming and Boarding in London. Her obituary says she loved animals, rescued dogs, enjoyed reading, and loved rock concerts. Before this became a criminal case, Rachel was a real person with children, friends, plans, and a place in her community. Publicly, the case now turns on one question. Did the physical evidence support Kyle Long's claim that Rachel stabbed herself, or did it point investigators in a very different direction? Here is the story Kyle gave. According to the criminal complaint as described in local reporting, Kyle told deputies Rachel came home from work, went toward the bedroom or master bathroom area, and while he was in another room watching TV, he heard what he thought was laughing and then screaming. He claimed that when he checked on her, he saw Rachel stabbing herself in the face and neck. In the 911 call, he reportedly said, "My wife just stabbed herself. There's no pulse, blood all over the place." That was not a vague first account. It was a direct explanation for the death. Kyle was telling police Rachel did this to herself. And once a version is that specific, investigators test everything against it. The scene, the injuries, the timeline, and every later statement that follows. According to investigators, that is where the problems began. Authorities reportedly found Rachel in the master bathroom, lying in a pool of blood and wearing blood-soaked clothing. The autopsy found at least 17 sharp force injuries. Reporting also says she had defensive-type wounds to her hands, and local coverage says detectives believed the evidence indicated some sort of struggle between Rachel and Kyle. And this is where the logic starts turning against Kyle's story. Because if he wanted police to believe Rachel did this to herself, investigators saying the injuries looked defensive becomes a major problem for that version of events. Defensive against what? Against who? That goes directly to whether the scene matched the story Kyle gave from the beginning. Investigators also pointed to another detail that made the account harder to square with the evidence. According to reporting, Kyle allegedly said Rachel was using her right hand. But investigators said Rachel had defensive type wounds on both hands. The same reporting also says authorities focused on the fact that Kyle called 911 once, hung up, and then called back again about 4 minutes later, something they believed did not line up cleanly with the story he originally gave. So now it is not just the autopsy raising questions, it is the hand wounds, the timeline, and Kyle's own actions. And that is when a story starts collapsing, when it is not only the injuries working against it, but the sequence of events too. Then the second interview became important. Local reporting says detectives believed statements Kyle made in a later interview were not consistent with what he told them on the day Rachel died. Once investigators think your story is changing, they stop treating you only as the person who made the call, and they start testing your statements against the physical evidence itself. That is a major shift in a case like this. At first, someone may sound like the reporting party, but once later, statements stop matching the original version, and the original version is already struggling against the evidence. That person can quickly become the center of the investigation. Investigators also developed what they believed was more context around the marriage. According to reporting, Rachel wanted a separation. One of Rachel's childhood friends, Brittany Maddox, told local media she did not believe Rachel would have taken her own life. She said Rachel had been excited to leave, make new relationships and friendships, and start a new adventure as a single mom. That context does not prove motive by itself, but it does matter because now the case no longer looks like a death with no emotional background at all. According to investigators and people who knew Rachel, it looks like a marriage that may have been breaking down at the same time Kyle was claiming Rachel suddenly killed herself. Investigators also reviewed Rachel's final messages. Reporting says they spoke with Madison Myers, the last person Rachel texted before she died, and those messages reportedly showed no signs Rachel was suicidal or angry. Instead, the two were talking about what to wear to a concert the next day. Talking about a concert does not prove murder, but in context, investigators believed it made the suicide explanation harder to accept. And when you place that beside everything else, the pressure on Kyle's original story becomes easier to understand. The 911 story, the number of injuries, the defensive wounds, the possible struggle, the 4-minute callback issue, the later interview inconsistency, the texts about tomorrow, the separation, and after a while, the same question keeps coming back. How many things have to point in the wrong direction before the original explanation stops being believable? The sheriff's comments make that issue even clearer. Madison County Sheriff John Swaney said investigators treated the death as suspicious from the beginning, and he said Kyle was the only person in the residence. He also explained why the arrest took months, saying investigators had to get reports back and make sure the evidence aligned before moving forward. That matters because it shows this was not a theory investigators suddenly invented months later. According to the sheriff, they were uneasy from the start. What they needed was time. Time for the autopsy, time for interviews, time to compare Kyle's statements against the scene, time to make sure the evidence would hold together before filing a murder charge. The coroner ultimately ruled Rachel's manner of death a homicide, and deputies arrested Kyle during a traffic stop on the morning of March 4th. Then the case moved into court. At Kyle's first court appearance, prosecutors asked for a $2 million bond. The judge set bond at $1.5 million. Defense attorney Sam Szymanski said Kyle had continuously maintained he did not cause Rachel's death and called it a horrible tragedy for which Kyle bore no responsibility, only sorrow. Legally, Kyle is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. And that gives you the public shape of the case so far. Kyle says Rachel stabbed herself. Investigators say the injuries looked defensive. Kyle gave a specific account. Detectives say later statements did not match earlier ones. Police say the scene, the wounds, and the timeline gave them reason to treat the death as suspicious from the beginning. And to me, that is still the center of this case. Not just what happened in that bathroom, but whether Kyle's original story was ever believable once it was placed next to the physical evidence. Because if the original explanation had truly fit, would this case have ended with a homicide ruling, a murder arrest, and $1.5 million bond? That is the question hanging over everything right now. And unless more court records, affidavit details, or hearing testimony become public, that is still the question people are left sitting with.